Divorce. Very familiar word in our society today, affecting 50% of us. If you haven't experienced divorce personally, chances are you either know someone who has or perhaps will one day. Divorce affects us in so many different ways, financially, physically, emotionally, mentally, and not only does it affect us personally, but everyone around us, from our children to our husband or wife that's also going through the same process, our parents, in-laws, siblings, co-workers, the list goes on and on. Divorce also can seem like a never-ending process. And unfortunately, without a handbook to go through on how to get us through divorce successfully, it can be quite devastating and painful. With us today for the next half hour, we have in the studio Dr. Debbie Hecker, who is an expert and specializes in letting go and pushing through the pain of divorce to experience a fulfilled life after divorce. Dr. Hecker, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure. And I want to ask you, what is the worst part about divorce in our society today?
I would say the worst part of divorce, Michelle, is that it affects so many areas of our life. It can affect us emotionally, it can affect us physically, it can affect our day-to-day experiences. We can go through a range of feelings, and regardless of the circumstances, everybody will go through some kind of upheaval, an emotional upheaval. And regardless of whether or not one takes the initiative, and I'll refer to that person as the dumper, or when is the recipient of that, the dumpee, nobody gets by without an emotional upheaval.
There are so many things we don't expect when divorce hits us, especially if we're the dumpee. What are some of the things that we can expect when we're going into a divorce?
The range of feelings is tremendous. It can be anywhere from sadness, depression, surprisingly exhilaration, relief. Oftentimes you'll hear about people saying, finally, I've reached the point where I can be divorced. Sadness, anger, despair, loneliness. Great, now I can start a new life. So there's really a range of feelings that one will experience.
Quite an emotional roller coaster, it seems. Not just a flat line. It's going to fluctuate through the whole entire process.
And along those lines, I think it's important to mention that sometimes people think they're going crazy because the range of feelings is so varied, and they can go to sleep and feel, hey, I feel pretty okay, and then wake up the next day and be taken completely by surprise. I have actually an interesting clinical example. I have a patient who started off talking about his divorce in terms of, I don't see how I can possibly get through this. And very gradually he moved into a place where he was feeling more secure about it, and in fact was actually looking forward to his life as a single person. The day of his divorce, he sent me an email, and the subject matter was help. And he was completely blindsided. He had no anticipation whatsoever that here he was feeling terrific, and then the next day he was, am I doing the right thing? So the point is, of course, that there are so many different feelings, and they can fluctuate. They gradually will level off.
And I'm sure there are times when we are going to second guess. Did we do the right thing? Just like what you said, did we do the right thing? Because sometimes I know divorce is necessary, but still the whole process of getting through that pain is unavoidable, correct?
I don't think that anybody is 100%. I think divorce is one of those experiences in life where there's always a level of ambivalence about it, and even though the scales may tip in the direction of I need to do this, I would say that there's always some degree of ambivalence, even post-divorce.
Even post-divorce, very interesting. Well, you're an accomplished psychotherapist. Why divorce? Why specialize in divorce?
Well, I went through a very painful divorce experience myself many years ago, and I realized at the time that I was going through this intense legal process, but I really needed somebody to talk with about how do I let go? How do I do this? I had no idea how to do it, and although I had someone helping me, a very good psychotherapist, he did not specialize in the experience of letting go, specifically as it relates to divorce. And as I became more sensitive to the pain of separation and the trauma of divorce, I became a champion of the need for people to go through a divorce an emotional experience.
So there was a definite need there that needed to be filled, and actually going through the experience yourself, you were able to relate to so many others and help them through this process. Divorce is such an emotional roller coaster. What is the purpose?
Michelle, let me interrupt you for a moment,
Sure.
if I may. Unfortunately, divorce ends up sometimes in the wrong hands. And by that I mean that more often than not, the focus of a divorce process is in the hands of the attorneys. A divorce is really a twofold process. There's the emotional divorce, and then there's the legal divorce. And unfortunately, if the emotional end of it is not appropriately dealt with, there are going to be a lot of difficulties that will ensue. Okay, let me give you an example, Michelle. A kind of classic example is a man, could be a woman, but it's generally the man, who feels so guilty about initiating a divorce that he will say to his attorney, you know, just give her everything. Just let her take everything.
I want it over with. Just do what you got to do kind of thing.
And this is a very good example of how his emotions are clouding his judgment. And ultimately, that can lead to poor legal decisions. So again, that's an example of how, or another example might be a woman who's so angry, if it's the woman who's the recipient of the initiator, who's so angry, she just wants to go after, let's go after everything. Again, a divorce is a situation where you're not going to get everything you want, and the less adversarial the divorce is, the more productive and dignified it's likely to be. So that it's so important to deal with the emotional component of the divorce process.
With what you're saying, Dr. Hecker, it sounds like that the emotional side of divorce in a lot of ways is more important than the legal side. Is that true?
No, I would not say, Michelle, it's more important. I would say it's equally as important, and unfortunately, it's underutilized. I have a mission, and that mission is to end the war between the parties.
Kind of like the movie, War of the Roses?
The War of the Roses, that can go on and on. And the problems can go on and on post-divorce. They can complicate good legal resolution, and they can also create a lot more expense, double, even triple the attorney's costs. So entering counseling early on can minimize the complications in the legal arena.
Would you say that's the primary purpose for getting this type of counseling, or is there a bigger purpose here?
The purpose of the counseling process is for me to help someone to heal, to get over the pain as quickly and economically as possible. And hopefully to use the grieving process or the letting go process as a stepping stone to growth, renewal, even transformation.
Speaking of grieving, because we alluded to the fact earlier that divorce can be the death of a relationship, next to actually experiencing death in a family, can we be grieving and not know it?
Excellent question. There are times where it takes a family member to actually say to the person who is going through this, you know, you're acting kind of strangely, or, you know, are you aware of the fact that you're depressed?
Dr. Hecker and Michelle Miller will return in a moment. It's a sad fact that 50% of all American marriages end in divorce. Damage control of the effects of divorce depends on learning how to live a new life as a divorced person. If you are contemplating divorce, currently involved in divorce, or attempting to adjust to life after divorce, Dr. Hecker wants you to know she can help you.
I got interested in doing divorce counseling specifically because I went through a very, very painful, difficult divorce. I'd been doing kind of general psychotherapy for many years and realized that some of my patients were kind of transitioning through similar kinds of experiences, and decided that I needed to organize this in some way, because I did not benefit from the help of someone who was really trained specifically in dealing with the problems associated with divorce.